changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more complaining. People, their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more.
Several years ago, I had an idea. I'm laughing at myself because back when I was the minister of the church, they said that there were no more frightening words than Will saying, I have an idea, because that means that a lot of things are going to change. And if I had not had ideas, we would not have the complaint-free movement. So I'm good with that. It occurred to me that since the opposite of complaining is gratitude, and we have a national day of gratitude, that being Thanksgiving, although many of us tend to forget that that's what it's about. It becomes about watching parades, which I love to watch the parades, and watching football, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, eating lots of food, seeing family. And not so much a day where people literally sit and count their blessings. I remember one time at Thanksgiving, I actually asked everybody, we had a big gathering, and I asked everybody to name something they were grateful about the person around the table. And so it literally took forever. The food got all cold. So that was taking counting the blessings a bit too far. What I'm suggesting is that we actually, on Thanksgiving, ask ourselves, what are we grateful for? In other words, what do we have that we would surely miss if it were gone from our lives? That's one of the easiest ways to know. Teddy for me, and well, I had this idea because Thanksgiving was coming up. If Thanksgiving is the day of gratitude, and if this is the complaint-free movement, and if complaining is the opposite of gratitude, then before we have our National Day of Gratitude, we should have a National Day of not complaining. A lot of people, well, let me change that. Everyone loves the idea of trying to give up complaining. I've never had anybody push back on that. What they push back on is when I tell them to put a bracelet on their wrist, and every time they catch themselves, move the bracelet for 21 consecutive days. Then all of a sudden it becomes effort, and people push back on that. So I thought, why don't we have just one day, the day before Thanksgiving every year, make it complaint-free Wednesday. So, of course, in my always dreaming big, I drove to my state senator's office in Missouri, my local. There's two, of course, but I drove to the local state senator and went right in and started pitching this idea of getting Congress to declare the day before Thanksgiving complaint-free Wednesday. And I didn't talk directly to the not the candidate, but the senator right at first. I talked to his staff, and they dug the idea. They liked the idea. They especially liked the idea that I had been on Oprah, and they could, dovetail with all of that. And so they went back and they spoke to the senator, and the senator was like, I'll meet this guy. We met. He liked the idea. And then I met with excuse me, you know what? I've been saying senator, it was congressman, because it was a congressman from my district, and I met with another congressman. So anyway, I met with two U.S. congressmen over a period of a couple of months. I got both of them to sponsor this bill. One is a Democrat, staunch Democrat. One is a staunch Republican. And I got them to sponsor this bill to make the Wednesday before Thanksgiving complaint-free Wednesday. Now, that does seem like a really big idea, except when you start looking at all the official designations. Congress has set up an official ice cream day, flag day, yoga day. I mean, Congress is one of the things they do is establish certain days as this is such and such day. So it was not that big of a reach, for me to ask this. And they both loved the idea. So I wrote the bill. They are the proclamation. They agreed with it, made a couple of little changes, took it to DC, and they put it in the box, the hopper. And that's where other people come up and they support it. Now, the only way to get support on a bill is to begin to go, or on a proclamation, is to go around and tell other people. So these two members of Congress, who are great people and will remain nameless, went around and began to talk to other members of Congress, trying to get them to support this proclamation. So we were on our way for Congress making Complaint-Free Wednesday a thing. And they were actually, with all the other stuff they really had to work on, which was far more important than this, managed to go around and talk to some of the other members of Congress. And that's when the pushback started. Complaint-Free Wednesday? Are you crazy? The people in my district will ride me out of town on a rail. Complaint-Free Wednesday? People want to complain. I am here for them to complain too. See, they were not getting the concept of what I mean by not complaining. It's not complaining if you speak directly and only to the person who can resolve your issue. And that means your state representative many times, if that's a type of issue that you have. So we're not asking people to shut up and suck up whatever the world sends their way. We're asking them to stop complaining to the people who can't do anything about it. Speak directly and only to the people who can resolve your issue. And the two congressmen, they were both men, that I was working with, understood this. They totally got this. But when I talk back to their offices, more and more and more, they're like, no, nobody else is signing on. No, nobody else is joining in with this. No, nobody else is going with this. Nobody else is supporting us on this. And they said, can you imagine, because there'll be a chance for everybody to stand up on the floor and speak, and a congressman gets up there and speaks about the importance of not complaining? That is going to be taken out of context and put into a political ad running against them. Guaranteed. Absolutely guaranteed. It is like custom made for a perfect attack ad. Will Bowen is running for Congress. Will Bowen doesn't care about what you think. I'm in favor of people not complaining. See? Isn't that amazing? It's kind of interesting when you want to make the world and society a better place, and the power behind that society is driven by the very thing that you want to lessen. I was going to use a $20,000 word, ameliorate, that you want to make less frequent. People complain for power. People complain for power. Politics is driven by complaining. Let me explain the people complain for 5 reasons. I've shared this with you. My book is based on this. GRIPE, gripe. People complain to get attention. My older brother once ran for a state legislature office, and he said he was going to run a positive, non-complaining campaign until he realized no one cared or knew anything about him. He was going to absolutely lose. And so he began to just complain about, the other candidate and about various things. And he found a core issue that he complained about. And all of a sudden he got attention. The R in gripe is remove responsibility. People complain to remove themselves from responsibility. When the pandemic came on so forcefully, Trump blamed the Obama administration for not adequately preparing for the pandemic. Now, was he right, et cetera? It didn't really matter. What it did was it took the spotlight off of his administration and put it on someone else. And I'm not saying Trump's the only one to do this. Every administration does this. The I in gripe is inspire envy or brag. People in politics often complain about how hard they have to work and how much effort and how difficult things are as a way of making you admire them. The P is obvious in gripe. Power. People complain for power. They simply want to get other people to follow them. One of the things I always do in one of my speeches is I say, "Hi, I'm Will Bowen and I'm running for Senate. And I want you to know that I think that all of the men and women in power in the United States Senate and Congress and even in the White House are doing a great job. And I want you to elect me and send me up there so I can keep things just the way they are." Will Bowen for Senate. Absolutely. Do you think I get elected? No way. You got to come on and they're skunks, they're scallywags, they got to go. And I'm the only one that can fix it. Complaining is power. And then, of course, the E in gripe stands for excuse poor performance. Excuse poor performance. When someone makes a mistake or doesn't do a good job, they rarely stand up and say, "Hey, it was totally my fault." In many cases, they complain about external forces to make themselves look better. Yesterday, the wind was crazy here in Key Largo. It is here again today. It's white capping on the bay. And so playing pickleball, you'd hit a shot sometimes and all of a sudden the wind would add 3 extra feet to it going in one direction or the other, or take 3 feet away from it. And you just never quite knew. And then sometimes the wind would just be completely still. And I noticed that people would hit bad shots and still blame the wind, even when it was still. That is excuse poor performance. And that's what politics is all about. So all of this to say that we are still working on making Complaint-Free Wednesday an official thing in the country. And yet the thing that we are trying to move forward, not complaining, is the thing that drives the very power system that I am encouraging to adopt this. I still know it's going to happen. You can't push the river. You can't make things happen in your time. You make them happen or you allow them to happen. So that's my dream, friends, and thank you for being part of it. And the way we do this today is I want you to invite at least 2 other people to try and go today without complaining. Do it nicely. Don't tell them they're a big complainer. Say, "Hey, you hardly complain at all, but I want to see if I'm taking this challenge to do. Just go today without complaining." And when you do, not if, because the average person complains 15 to 30 times a day. When you do, shrug it off, laugh about it. It's not a big deal. And then continue to work on it. Awareness is the first thing to change. None of us would ever go on a diet if our clothes didn't get tight or if the scale didn't give us a number we don't like. And so if you're here for the first time, again, please let us know. If you would like to do this, share this with your friends and family. Let's get as many people as we can to take this Complaint-Free Wednesday challenge. And when I take some time and go back and start talking to members of the House and Senate again to get this passed, I'm going to ask you to start calling your members of Congress and ask them to support this bill. That's what it's going to take, this proclamation, to make Complaint-Free Wednesday an official day. And by the way, there are a number of cities around the country that have designated today Complaint-Free Wednesday. When I say a number, the number is probably that I know of 5 or 6 that people have gotten in touch with me. They tend to be small towns where, they're usually it's a lady or woman in the community's like, "Okay, we're going to do this." And they push to get it through. The reason I say that is everyone I think about who did this was a woman. So send a petition out. I love it. Actually, Tresha, there is one in my book, A Complaint-Free World. I tell you in there how to set up a Complaint-Free Wednesday in your community.
No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No